recorded in your, just switch off the camera. And so the speakers in these meetings are going to be Jörg Hofer, who is the CEO of Prime Competence, and the other speaker is Daniel Stollerschei, who is the CEO of Collaboration Design. And they will tell us the story of this experience. We met them almost a year and a half ago again, and they have been picking up and using very intensively DigComp, and they will tell us the story of what they did with this with the framework and how they implemented it in the project with the Swiss government, with the Swiss government department. So please, I pass the floor on to you, to the speakers, and thank you very much for all those who are attending the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. I will just go and share the screen, which I think now you should be able to see.
Yes, we do. Yep.
Okay, very good. Oh, hang on. I'm working with two screens, so it depends where the mouse is. It either goes or it doesn't. Yes, we call it a very simple, the digital competency check. It's nothing else but checking the digital competencies of organizations, mainly companies, but also public organizations like a department, respectively, department of the Swiss federal government. Who we are, my name Jörg Hofer. You see me on the right. I'm the CEO of Prime Competence. My background, I'm an electronics engineer by training. That's about probably feels like 100 years ago. I was very much a long time in telecommunications, mainly Alcatel and Nokia, and for quite some time now working on the field of training, micro-learning, and gamification. So that's sort of my part. And Daniel, you talk about yourself.
My name is Daniel Stollerschei. My background is in education science and information management and informatics. I've worked for a long time in large companies and developed all sorts of digital learning and digital working environments for international companies, but also for small and medium enterprises, as well as for startups. And since 6 years, I'm self-employed with my own company, Collaboration Design. I consider myself as a change companion for digital transformation. And together with Jörg, I'm also part of the special interest group in the Swiss ICT Federation here in Switzerland, in the special interest group Digital Competency, and I will talk about that a little bit later.
Okay, for the agenda, we will like ping pong. We will hand each other the word through the agenda. We talk about why did we come actually to this project? What was the starting point? Then a quick overview over the digital competency check. What were the challenges we faced, and how did we then actually overcome them? By telling about how does the DCC work, how also is the implementation in practice, and then last but not least, a live demonstration of the check to see, so you can have a first-hand look what that looks like.
And at any time, you can also ask your questions in the chat or even directly through the microphone. We are now 24 people. I think that's okay. So if you have a question, just jump in either through the chat or through the microphone.
And in any case, at the end, now we should have like 15 minutes for question and answers. In any case.
Yeah, good, great. Okay. And
Good.
with that, we step into the first survey. It's an interactive survey with menti.com. And maybe you can paste the link, or I can do that. Just a moment. I paste the link, the direct link into the chat. Just a moment.
Great. Yeah.
That's easier. So give me a second, and then I paste that here into the chat. So now you have the direct link in the chat, but you can also take a picture of the QR code. It's a very simple survey about your experiences with assessing digital skills. And maybe Jörg, you can stop here for a moment because then I can take over and show you the results.
Yep.
Good. So I take over and I share. Yeah. I assume, Stefano, you have to give me the sharing rights.
I just did.
Yep, I see it. Perfect. Thanks a lot. So, and with that, I go here to the results. And now you see the results coming in. We have currently 14 votes. And it's interesting. We have a very mature audience today, Jörg, as you can see.
Yep. Right.
Yeah. So over 60% have already used an assessment tool. And almost 40% know one or more assessment tools. So it's a very experienced audience. So that's also good for us because we are also, of course, curious to get your feedbacks about our digital competency check. And I would say with that, I just continue with the presentation for a moment.
Yep. I'll get back the presentation window.
Okay. Let's start with the starting point. Why do we speak about a digital competency check, or why do we speak about competency models? As I've mentioned before, Jürgen and I, we are in this special interest group from Swiss ICT called the Digital Competency Group. And we've worked since a long time on competency models. For example, from McKinsey and Ashoka Germany, from the World Economic Forum, and many others. We even developed our own competency models. And then we came to the point that this is maybe not the right approach. It doesn't make sense that everybody somehow develops their own digital competency models. And then we come across of the DigComp 2.2 framework, and we found that very elaborated, very sophisticated. And that was for us the reason to switch to DigComp 2.2. And by the way, I'm also very curious to learn a little bit more, maybe later on or in the future, about DigComp 3.0. Because what we miss a little bit, I have to say, of course, in the DigComp 2.2 framework is the focus on AI, which is absolutely logical. And therefore, we also added or looked at another model, which maybe could be interesting for you, Stefano. It's called the AIComp model from Germany. It's the Duale Hochschule Baden-Württemberg. I can give you the link if you run. So we have somehow a mix between DigComp 2.2 and the AIComp model. And that's somehow the basis. The driving factor is that also here in Switzerland, we need a workforce readiness in regard of digital skills. You see, there are many, many papers, very smart papers, very important papers, but we lack a little bit really assessing digital skills. And that was the reason for Jörg and myself to make a joint venture between our companies and to develop what we call the Digital Competency Check is based on the 5 competency areas of DigComp 2.2 and the 21 competences. And we will give you now in this presentation first a more theoretical overview, then also how we implement that in companies, and then Jörg will give you then a direct presentation, a demo of the system itself. And with that, I hand over to you, Jörg. And
Yep.
if you don't mind, I can just follow and go to the next slide. Is that okay for you? Or would you like to share?
What do you mean?
At the moment,
I'm sharing it, right?
no, at the moment I'm sharing. I'm,
Oh, you're sharing.
yep,
Okay.
I'm sharing the presentation. So if
Ah,
now,
because I'm looking at this, what I do here on my other screen, and thought okay.
yeah, that's the nice thing when we speak about digital competency. Good. Okay, you can continue with the digital competency overview.
Okay. So you have now the control, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, good. Yes, the overview. So what we do, 5 points that are important. As you already mentioned before, it's based on the DigComp 2.2 framework with the 21 competencies. It combines knowledge tests, gamification, and some reference and also to practical scenarios. So it's not only theoretical questions, but we base it also on some practical situations. The whole thing is integrated into a gamification. It's actually a learning app that we adapted. So that has one of the advantages is that you can add other topics. You can customize it also to some clients that go maybe beyond the 21 competencies, or do specific focus on that on certain aspects, plus the whole gamification aspect. And then it's multilingual. That's the basic requirement for Switzerland. So we initially now made it in four languages. So that's German, French, Italian, and English. But any other language is possible. And it provides then the individual and team-related data, which then we will offline then create some reports on that. With that, you can go on to the challenges, Daniel.
So actually, we face, I would say, 3 challenges when it comes to developing such an assessment tool. And the first one is the balance between effort and accuracy. So it needs quite a high effort for a detailed assessment. On the other side, if you don't do that, you have maybe the problem of superficial quick tests and so on, which we see in a lot of companies. So because it needs a certain effort, a lot of companies just go into let's say quick and dirty solutions. They work with superficial quick tests, which do not really produce the results which are helpful then to develop the whole company. But of course, it's also a balance between granularity and precision. We have always to speak with companies to which degree or to which granularity we can assess the different digital competencies. And then it's also a question of the different assessment models. And you see 4 of them. A lot of companies and also a lot of DigComp 2.2 tests just are in the first area regarding self-assessments. And for us, Honestly, that's not very helpful because, of course, it's simple and fast, it's subjective, but it does not really produce any reliable data. And the same is true for knowledge queries. And then the third one, simulation, that would be great, but that's to a certain degree high and complex. So we decided to go for a knowledge test, and that's the basis for the digital competency check. It's I would say, reasonable, precise, and also motivating because it's based on a gamification approach.
Maybe thing is that from the Swiss government, basically, but which is the or yeah, our initial customer, there's a limit on how much time their employees should spend on the assessment.
Correct. And that brings
And so that also is a restriction we had to adhere to.
No, that's absolutely correct. And that brings me to the second challenge, that's participants' motivation. So how do we deal with participants' motivation? You've mentioned already that the first part is that we try to approach them with a gamified approach. Secondly, we try to integrate it into daily work routines, not only that we integrate the test directly into, let's say, the work environment, but also that we try to integrate working examples so that we base the test questions on daily work routines and working examples. And maybe the third point, which is missing here, I would say, is leadership. So a big part of motivation is also based on good leadership. So we try always to start with the top management and go with them through the digital competency check, and then we can use that experiences also for internal communication. And the third challenge, of course, is how do we create the questions? In the past, I would say we created all those questions completely manually. And now, of course, with the help of artificial intelligence, we try to do that with generative AI. And we um, checked out different approaches. First approach was that we, with offshore software company, we produced our own Gen AI enabled testing system that went reasonably well, but of course was quite a big effort. Then in comparison, we created a custom GPT solution based on OpenAI. So we feeded all the information regarding DigComp 2.2 into our custom GPT. And then we created a fairly long prompt to create the test questions. And honestly, that worked even better than our own Gen AI enabled testing system. So at the moment, we are following this approach. But of course, we are testing also other approaches on a regular basis because we have always new models and we have also new Gen AI tools. So it's an ongoing process. But at the moment, the custom GPT solution works pretty well.
Yeah. Although we cannot just take it over one-to-one. It always needs some manual yeah, adaptation. Some things you have to go through each question, and there in let's say half the cases you have to make adjustments.
That's absolutely correct. And that's also super important to guarantee the quality of the questions and the answers. And it's also not so easy to create, let's say, answer options which are really clearly correct or wrong, but not too obvious. And that's a fine balance, yeah, to create a prompt who is able to do so. And as Jörg just mentioned, Of course, we have to go through the results and adjust that to make sure that the quality is really correct and fits the expectations of the customer. Good. These are the three challenges, and with that, we continue with how does the digital competency check work?
Okay, yep. So I don't know. I don't see what you show, but we're having this big picture here. We have three steps we go through. The first one is to measure. Here we use the Qfive app to create basically the raw data. Then the whole analysis part, where we can do an analysis for individuals, groups, teams, entire organizations. Also do some benchmarking. And then the last step then is to develop them based on these results. Then we present a development plan for the company, for the team, or for individuals, how to fill the gaps.
Good.
Next one, measure. Here we have the assessment. We call it's a mission. And you see it afterwards. So you have to, think you're on a road. You have various hurdles to take. Those are checks. Those are like little tests, little assessments where you can do over a period of maybe 2 weeks. And until the end, when you go through all 21 competencies, then you get a result. And you also can then download your own certificate. So that's sort of the measure part. And it's based on that mission. That's sort of a little bit the gamification part. What we've done, the difficulty level can be adaptive. That means we can, depending on which questions we upload, we can sort of adapt the difficulty level on the assessment. For the time being, we are doing sort of a median, intermediate level test where we see where people stand with that one. We still need some experience here to see how we, how do we apply all these levels. The DigComp 2.2 has a total of 8 levels. We on purpose left out the expert level 7 and 8, so we have the first 3, or they have the first 6, and these then we grouped together into 3 levels. Basically a beginner, intermediate, and advanced.
If I may, Jörg, if I may say, DigComp 3.0 will probably work again on 4 levels, so aggregating
Okay.
basic foundation, intermediate, advanced, and highly advanced. But
Yeah.
makes sense that you left out the expert levels.
Okay, good. So we weren't that wrong. Fine. Okay. Then can you go to the next slide, Daniel? On the analysis part, I have here some screenshots. What we've done too now is that for each participant also has a job profile in the sense of which digital competency is how relevant to the particular job. Is it highly relevant, less relevant, or irrelevant? And then we can map these 21 competencies then in a splatter plot, which you see here in the middle with 4 quadrants. The upper right quadrant then says, well, these are the important, the relevant, important competencies, and the score is sufficiently high, so there is no immediate need for any development. Below that are competencies that are important, that are relevant, but the score is maybe not sufficient or just barely sufficient. So there is where the need for training will be, and this is where the focus will be on the training. The upper left corner then is what we call the development potential. Those are then competencies that are well developed, that are score highly, but are not relevant for the job. But it obviously then points to some areas where somebody or a team or the company can develop to. And then the lower left quadrant is basically the one we can ignore because it's these competencies are neither developed nor are they important or are not relevant at all for that particular job role, of course. Then individually, each participant individually gets a plot with a what we call spider diagram or radar diagram. We also compared then to a benchmark. So each one sees where he or she stands compared to, let's say, the group or the company or even the industry. And then we also have what we call this box and whisker diagram. That's maybe for the whole company or the department, where you can see on the left side, you see the score. And within the box, 50% of the participants are within the box. And then you see the outliers, upper and lower outliers, where they go individually. But 50% of the people in the medium is within that box. So that gives you also some indication where your group, your team, or your company stands. Again, over time, then we can compare that to some industry standards or to other teams or other companies.
And you see, it becomes pretty transparent what's going on in your company. So all the competency levels regarding digital competencies become very, very transparent, and not every organization really likes that. That was quite interesting. So, for example, regarding the internal benchmark, we always try to invite the top management to go first and make the digital competency check in order to set a certain internal benchmark, and then all the employees can work against the top management. But that would be, I mean, Jürgen and I, we found that a pretty nice idea, but it's not so hard. It's pretty hard to convince the top management to go in that direction. Yeah.
That's mainly a cultural issue then.
Absolutely.
Which we know needs some work. That's right.
Yeah.
Can you go to the next slide?
Yep.
Okay. Then for the development part, and then again, that's where we think the digital competency check has a real advantage, is that you can now use the Qfive app almost seamlessly now as a learning tool. So you can then play another, or you switch to a learning mode, where then you play a knowledge game, you play a knowledge tournament. You can play against other participants or against your colleagues. You go through the same questions. You now also get explanations to the answers of the questions. And so you have a very low-key micro-learning tool to get, to repeat again the same question. You can add other questions. You have a library. So you have a sort of initial learning experience, right, following the assessment. Then, of course, there are existing internal learning resources, which we would, from our viewpoint, evaluate, look at, suggest. There are external learning resources like courses all the way up to universities or colleges, or maybe there's also an opportunity to create and develop additional learning resources if they're not available or in whatever form you need. And the whole thing will be accompanied by talks, development talks with the people, with the groups. So that's where then more of the sort of consulting work will come in. Next one.
With that, we come to the implementation into practice. How do you implement that now in a organization or in a company? And for that, we developed a four-phase model. So the first phase is, I can make that a little bit bigger. And the first phase is the concept phase. It's, I would say, pure project management, often combined with change management. And here we discuss with the company, the organization, all the details. For example, as Jörg already mentioned, what should be the duration of this digital competency check, for how many time or how many weeks and the check should be accessible. Then also very concrete questions like how do we handle the login? Do we combine or attach that to the Active Directory? Or do we have some kind of a voucher system or something like that? Then also, where is the data stored and so on? And what level of transparency should be applied to the analysis and so on. So that's all about the concept phase. And part of the concept phase, and that's, I would say, really crucial and really important, is the overall communication process. So how do we communicate that within the company and through which channels? And at the moment, it's a combination of intranet pages, sometimes Confluence pages with detailed information, sometimes that we create a podcast or an interview with, for example, someone or even more persons from the top management. Sometimes we organize a town hall, information, and so on. So the communication process, I would say, is pretty important. And there is a good reason why we do not call that a test. I mean, actually, it's a knowledge test, but we avoid the word test because it has some negative connotations. So it's rather it's better to call that a check. But all that has to be communicated to the employees and the participants. So all that is part of the concept phase together with the communication process. Then secondly, that's the implementation or execution phase. That's where all the employees get access to the digital competency check, either through their mobiles, their smartphones. In that regard, of course, we have to clarify to which degree can all the employees use their private smartphones. That's a pretty important question. And for many companies, it's therefore more the approach that they go through desktop applications so that they run the digital competency check on their desktop computers. And then maybe for 2 to 4 weeks, we run that digital competency check. We collect all the data in the background, and then that leads us to the third phase. That's the analysis phase.
Daniel, you're 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, good. That's the analysis phase. And at the end, it's the development phase. I can show you the development phase. It's this one here. And here we develop suitable learning strategies and, for example, also bespoke training courses and so on. So that's the whole implementation process. And since we have only 5 minutes, I switch directly to the demo.
Thanks.
And I stop here so that you, Jörg, can now show us the demo.
Okay. let's see. I go here first.
And of course, everybody gets the presentation afterwards.
Yep. So you see now, okay, the demo. You see my screen now,
Yes.
Moment you see the PowerPoint.
the PowerPoint. Okay.
Good.
A couple words on Q5. It's gamification, playful elements. It's mobile and flexible. That means the assessment can be carried out anytime, anywhere with either a desktop, tablet, or smartphone. It is an app you can download from the App Store, respectively Play Store, or you can play it on a browser on any other device. Because it's sort of micro-learning style, you can, do it for 5 minutes, do a couple questions. You can stop and you can continue anytime later on. And once you're through, you can go into the learning module and, repeat it again in a learning mode uh, to really also learn something about it. Now, I will switch the screen here. I need to stop. And then let's see. I'll go here. Hold on. Oh. Now, I don't know what happened. Hang on.
Maybe you
So,
could share a different
yeah,
window.
I'm just doing it right now. So it only can be hours, and then we're there. So, okay. And then I'll go here. So you should see now.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. But I want to actually log out and go into. So when you're there, you can log in. Hang on 1 second. Just log in quickly. So, all right. So you're now here this is now a participant who already done it before. I'll make it a little bit short. So you would start here at the first one. You can click on intro, and here then you will see maybe a welcome message, maybe a video message from management. You can click here, then it will start playing a video. You can have any message here to get started, and then and then you start. The way I've organized it now is for each step here, you see there is going to be one of the 5 competency areas. And then in each one of the steps, you have the individual competencies. So we can just do one for to see how it works. For example, evaluation, information data literacy information. You can start, or you can also repeat it as we can do it here. You have now maybe maximum a half hour time to answer the questions. You get here the question. The question is either multiple choice, single choice, or ordering question. Ordering means you have to put it in a certain order, the answers. Now, this is a multiple choice. You have here it's now it's in English, but you can from here too change it to any language you want. It automatically switches or takes the language that your device is set up in. The question, which practices can help identify misinformation in digital content? And then you have 4 answer possibilities: understanding biases in data and algorithm used, examining the presence of deepfakes in visual content, cross-checking information with reputable sources, or relying only on trending news and social media. I'll take just those 2, let's say. Confirm the answer. I don't get any answer right now because it is an assessment, it is a test, so it's not in the learning mode. You can also say, well, I don't know. If you don't know the answer, you can say don't know. It goes to the next one. And here's an ordering question. It says place the steps to identify misinformation in the correct order. And then identify the purpose and bias, maybe the first one. Determine if the content contains manipulated data. Check multiple sources and evaluate the expertise of sources. Confirm answer. And what is a deepfake? This is a single choice question. That's an AI-generated manipulation of images, audio, or video. Confirm answer. So now I see here 3 incorrect, 1 correct. Continue. And then I'll go back here again. So now I could go to the next one and to the next one, etc. When I'm all the way through, I can then download my certificate.
Sorry, Jörg.
In the library, I see where do I stand with the individual competency areas, and in my profile, I also see here the graph, what it looks. Once I'm through, I can go then to the learning module, which then you do basically you do a quiz duel. So you duel other people, or you duel the computer in this case, and you start the duel. I just quickly show that. We challenge a robot. No opponent. Okay. I have active games. So now I can basically then play against others. The mission is a little bit different. It starts here. You have to play 1 game. And then you have also the library. In the library, then you can find documents, you can find videos, you can find other things. So you can actually go here right into the learning mode. I see we're a little bit running out of time, so I'll basically cut it short here, but I'm obviously available for additional questions if there are any.
And in the meantime, I pasted our closing remarks directly in the chat so we can directly go into the Q&A session, Stefano.
Yes, thank you. Yes, well, there was a specific question that was already answered. I was also curious to understand from the way you showed the navigation, you just can jump to one point to the other. There is no a compulsory sequence that you have to take.
So there is a sequence because I just showed it because it was basically a user that's already done it.
Okay.
Exactly. But I can certainly change that to the other user. Hang on. I'll do that.
I find very interesting this thing of the shifting from testing to learning mode. And
Absolutely.
it's really interesting there. There is another question. Well, Daniel, you can read them, so maybe you can pick them up. How long does it take an average user to answer the exercises needed to generate reliable results on their level of digital competence?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends a little bit. I mean, as you have seen, device is actually more the mobile phone than the desktop computer. And therefore, we are a little bit limited in regard of characters. So the question and the answer shouldn't be too long. And we are fully aware of the problem that maybe you don't want to sit 2 hours in front of your mobile to make that check. Therefore, you can jump out and jump in at any time. As long as the check is available, you can jump out and jump in again, and you can continue the check. Therefore, in average, we say that you need a learning or testing time for something between 1 and 2 hours.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's about 150, 160 questions.
It depends a little bit. That's also part of the concept phase. Of course, if the customer says that's too long or that's too short, we can change the amount of questions. That's not a problem. No? So we can either make it shorter or longer.
But you said, just to understand, at some point you mentioned that the fact that the test is adaptive. Does it mean that if you keep answering positively, correctly, let's say, to questions, then you're offered new questions which bring it a little bit higher in terms of, proficiency level? Or how does it work when you say, what do you mean when you said adaptive?
Well, it's adaptive in not individually, but adaptive to a company. When they say we
Okay.
want a higher level or a lower level, we can adapt obviously the questions. We can have different in parallel. You can have also different assessments. So you can have an easy assessment, a medium assessment, and a one. So you can go from one to the next.
Mhm.
So that's also possible.
Okay. Thank you.
And there is another interesting question from Leah about whether we measure what they are supposed to measure regarding the questions. Um, that's, I would say, still work in progress, Leah. At the moment, we do that. It's a combination of doing that with the help of AI and also manual work, and we try to improve that. So we are working on a prompting process that we can make that combination between the questions and the measurement criteria. But at the moment, that's still work in progress.
Okay. Thank you. Um, I'll read the question. Did I understand correctly that you work with companies to develop their own system based on their own requirements, or you have a generic system on which you build companies' extra requirements? I would say the second one, right? That you have a generic system on which you build.
Um, I can answer that, and maybe you can add on my answer, Jörg. We have a generic system, so we do not start from scratch. But of course, then it's quite easily adaptable to the needs of a company, especially when it comes to special, let's say, examples. So we can change the questions by integrating the examples from from a certain industry,
Mhm.
so that the questions are a little bit customized to the company or the organization. But we start with a generic set of questions, yes.
Right. And we have the 5 areas and the 21 competencies, but we can obviously add to those. So that's sort of a generic set of questions, and that's a starting point. But then we can expand that in any direction.
Yeah, correct. And there's a question from Walter. At the moment, we are using the digital competency check in business administration or public administration, as well as companies, not yet at universities, but we are fairly good connected to almost all University of Applied Science in Switzerland. So that would be the next step.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. And any other questions?
Of course, we are curious to know a little bit more, Leo, what you are doing. That sounds quite interesting.
Um, I was, I mean, I have, let me say two words since at the very beginning you mentioned it would be interesting to know what is happening with DigComp 3.0 and especially with respect to artificial intelligence. Of course, well, you know, because this has been said publicly that the main activity which is being done by the JRC currently is on developing a set of learning outcomes along the four macro proficiency levels for all 21 competencies. And as was the case with the DigComp 2.2 revision, also this new step is an opportunity to further integrate, in this case, not through examples, but through the learning outcomes, to integrate new developments in the digital world. So many learning outcomes that have been designed refer to artificial intelligence from different perspectives. Let's put it this way. So how it's impacting on digital competence from existing digital competence and new challenges and so on. So that's certainly coming up. And for this reason, I would like to ask you if you mentioned at the very beginning that you developed this kind of enhanced DigComp 2.2 model with the AIComp created in Germany, which I know it's one of the sources that the JRC is looking at for this work. So I
Mhm.
expect them to take that into account. But I was wondering if you're willing to share. I mean, did this to or share privately with JRC or more publicly with the COP, if possible, this enhanced model that you were mentioning, because that would be interesting, definitely. And also now I understood that I don't want to necessarily to get into your business model, but my understanding is that you are offering this customization opportunity as a service to whoever is interested, right? This is the
Exactly.
case. So if anyone is interested in this, they just get in touch with you, and you will tell them under which conditions, how much does it cost, if it's feasible, etc.
No, correct.
Good.
And maybe to your question, Stefano, what we did in our custom GPT, we made the AI comp model part of the knowledge base, which we are using to create the questions. And
Okay.
therefore, questions are a little bit more directed in the direction of artificial intelligence. And that's pretty good because with that we can include or yeah, include a little bit more the artificial intelligence topic.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the way you did it. Great. Great. Let me, okay. I think we are on time. This is really very interesting, as I was expecting. And well, you're members of the DigComp COP, so there are opportunities to interact with you and
Mhm.
through your personal contacts. And I really hope we have opportunities to follow the development of this experience on Earth from your side, other opportunities. And so thank you very much. And also to all the participants, let me remind you that next week, this time it's going to be, yes, short distance. We have another webinar of the Inspiring Experiences series about the experience of Austria and Latvia who have been using DigComp to map they have been mapping, let's say, to DigComp the training offer of mostly, but in some cases non-formal, but in both cases non-formal education, but in the case I think of Latvia also of formal education, school education. So they are. It's an opportunity again to hear a different way of using the DigComp framework. So thank you very much to everyone, and Daniel and Jörg for your very rich presentation and lots of information you gave. And I will upload everything you share with us on the. Just give me well, for the video recording, a few days, but for everything else, I will upload it probably today.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye.
Bye.